Are you a busy parent? Do you feel like you're being pulled in multiple directions all at once? Are you exhausted and overwhelmed? Meet my mom. Her name is Santi Tenikela. She's a pediatrician, expert in mind-body medicine, and a life coach. She can help you break free from guilt and overwhelm so that you can enjoy the life that you've worked so hard to create. She can also teach you how to support your family in a more holistic way.
Hello and welcome to episode 24. Today we're going to be talking about parental stress. So, this year marks my 10th anniversary of parenthood, and somehow I'm still alive. I'm not quite sure how, to be honest. I thought medical school and residency were hard, but being a parent is exceedingly harder, but so much more rewarding. To be frank, I'm not just going to take the day of my first child's birth as my anniversary date. Truly, from the moment that my husband and I decided that we were going to take the next step into parenthood, I started making changes in my life to help support the new little life that was going to grow within me. So guess what, folks? I'm going to take this whole year to celebrate this milestone for myself, my husband, and our whole family. Some of you know that Friday night is movie night in my house. We genuinely try to reserve this time for rest and relaxation. Usually we stay in, pop popcorn, and cuddle up under warm blankets. But this time we decided to go to the movies and watch Wild Robot. Now y'all should know that I'm a big softie and I tend to cry while watching kids' movies. I mean, listen, if you don't cry, you're heartless. Just kidding. Just kidding. But seriously, so many of them have these really poignant scenes, and Wild Robot was no different. One of the more touching lines was, "Sometimes to survive, you must become more than you were programmed to be." Like a snake shedding its skin, or a crab outgrowing its shell and needing a new one, we evolve from young adults to parents or caregivers. During this transition, there is a lot of mental and emotional growth that needs to take place to support our growing families. Without a doubt, having children is wonderful, but navigating this journey where there are so many unknowns can also be incredibly stressful. For me, it meant making lots of changes. When I was planning to get pregnant, I began to eat healthier. I tried to get more rest, which was hard because I have trouble sitting still sometimes. I remember studying for my board exam in integrative medicine around that time, and I was learning about environmental medicine only to realize that many of the products I was using, ranging from skincare products to cleaning products, contained toxic chemicals, so I began to phase all of those out. This was when it all started to come together for me. On my first Mother's Day, during which I was still pregnant, my husband bought me a picture frame with my son's ultrasound picture in it. The inscription on the frame read, "Mom, to the world you may be one person, but to me you are the world." We were out to lunch when he gave me this gift, and I cried. I cried at the acknowledgement of my motherhood. I also felt as big as the world because I was starting to get really round. I cried because of the sweetness of this gift. And I cried because it put to words a feeling that I had been having, that in these moments where this child was living inside of me, I really was his whole world. And I was wondering all along if I was taking good enough care of him. Though I wasn't alone, I felt that I was solely responsible for him during those 9 months, and that was super scary to me. Yes, my friends, even pediatricians like myself are human and have times of self-doubt. I wondered if I was going to be enough for this little guy. I wondered if I would be able to teach him and guide him well enough so that he could leave the nest and have everything he needed to be able to thrive. When I got pregnant with him, I had already been a practicing pediatrician for 2 years, so I had a fairly good sense of what I was about to get myself into, such as the feeling of having your heart walking around on toddler feet, or the fight to embrace ever-present uncertainty. Yep, I knew that was going to happen, but still, not quite the same until you're already there. One thing that I feel like I was really blessed to have learned quite early on was that it genuinely takes a village to raise a child. As a mom and a recovering perfectionist, I really had to fight the urge to want to do everything myself. And my mom will tell you that I was still quite a bit of a control freak. And she probably might tell you that I still am a little bit now and then, but that stays between you and me. But I digress. Of course, once we feel like we've mastered something, our kids grow and change and move into another phase of their development, like when they go from kids to teens, and we're left to figure it out all over again. We all know that being a parent comes with a lot of responsibilities, but we don't really talk enough about how much stress, pressure, and mental strain parents are under, especially in today's world. The US Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, recognizes this and recently put out an advisory called Parents Under Pressure, which looks at the mental health and well-being of parents. It highlights the growing mental health crisis many parents are facing and what we as a community can do to help. The advisory points out that many parents are feeling more stressed and overwhelmed than ever. In fact, in 2023, 33% of parents reported high levels of stress in the past month, compared to 20% of other adults. 41% of parents say that most days they are so stressed that they cannot function. This is due to several reasons, like financial pressures, balancing work and family life, even things like social media, which adds to the feeling that you're not doing enough or not doing things right. Look, folks, we can't sit here comparing our inner world to someone else's external world characterized by a perfectly posed picture on Instagram. It's like comparing apples and oranges. A key takeaway from the advisory is that being overwhelmed isn't just a personal problem for parents, it's a public health issue. When parents struggle, it can affect their kids, their family, and even their community. In fact, stressed parents are more likely to experience mental health conditions like anxiety and depression, which in turn can affect their ability to care for their children effectively. The trickle-down effect is something I often see in the office setting. Kids pick up on stress, and if parents are dealing with anxiety or depression, it can affect how they connect with their child. It can even lead to a feeling of disconnection within the child. This doesn't mean parents are at fault, far from it. The point is that supporting the mental health of parents is key to creating healthier families and communities. Being mentally healthy doesn't mean parents are always calm and never stressed. Instead, it's about building resilience, being able to manage stress, bounce back from challenges, and feel supported in the process. As parents, we often try to shield our kids from our stress, but sometimes it backfires, especially when we inadvertently lash out at them or put undue pressure on them. Sometimes we don't even realize what's happening because we're so deep into it that it's hard to have that level of objectivity. Being able to have open, honest, developmentally appropriate conversations with our kids can help us to cope with stress and find productive solutions that support our families better. The advisory calls out some groups of parents who are more likely to experience mental health challenges. Single parents, for example, often have less support and face more financial and time pressures. Low-income families are also at greater risk, as they may have less access to resources like quality childcare or mental health services. Mothers in particular tend to bear a large share of the caregiving load, and studies show they report higher levels of anxiety and depression. The pandemic made things worse, with many moms feeling like they had to do it all, juggling work, childcare, homeschooling, chores, and everything else. Personally, as a frontline worker during the pandemic and being a mom, I was grateful that I had someone helping me. And to be honest, I likely would have had to quit my job without her. So thank you. You know who you are. Fathers aren't immune to this pressure either, but they often face different challenges. For instance, societal expectations about being a strong man might discourage dads from asking for help or acknowledging when they're struggling. Listen, if you're a dad and you're listening to this podcast, A, props to you for listening. B, being able to speak and be vulnerable and be real, putting your pride aside to be there for your family, is a sign of strength. Just saying. The advisory also talks about parents of color facing unique stressors because of systemic issues like racism, discrimination, and inequality, which can all add to the mental health burden. One of the key findings of the advisory is that parents need strong social support networks to thrive. This could be family members, friends, or even community groups that provide emotional support and practical help. Unfortunately, a lot of parents feel isolated, especially if they don't have extended family nearby or if they're navigating parenthood far from their community of origin. I fully agree with the Surgeon General when he says that parents are stronger when they have people to lean on. This might look like a neighbor offering to help with school pickups, a family member pitching in with babysitting, or just having someone to talk to about the challenges of parenting. Communities that rally around parents can help lighten the load and improve the mental health burden significantly. So, parents, I'm telling you this once, I'll probably tell you again in a future podcast, but asking for help or accepting help is not a symbol of failure. It's not a symbol of failure. If you have a community that's rallied around you, that has open arms and is wanting to help, just accept the help with grace and love and gratitude. Don't worry that people are being judgy about you. It's not about you. It's about helping your whole family. Again, pride aside, that is really what's important here. Going back to the advisory lays out a few recommendations in terms of what we can do to support parents. One is to improve access to mental health services. Parents need better access to mental health care, whether that's therapy, counseling, support groups, you name it. For many, cost and time tend to be barriers. So the advisory calls for making mental health care more affordable, accessible, and available when parents need it. Secondly, workplaces need to step up. Lots of parents juggle work and family life, and the stress of doing both can be extremely overwhelming. Workplaces can help by offering more flexible schedules, paid parental leave, mental health benefits, and destigmatizing access to that level of care. Companies that invest in the well-being of their employees help to create a healthier, more productive workforce. Third, policy changes. The advisory also calls for broader policy changes like more affordable childcare and better family leave policies. If parents have more time and resources to care for their families, they're more likely to be mentally and emotionally well. This would mean passing legislation that supports families, like paid parental leave and affordable childcare options. You all, there are countries that have maternity leave for up to a year after the baby's born. I can't tell you how many moms I talk to on a daily basis who are nearing the 3-month mark after they've had their baby and dreading going back to work. They just don't feel ready. They don't feel like their child is ready to go to daycare. If we had longer maternity leave, that would make a world of difference for these families. It would also make a world of difference when it comes to maternal-child bonding. Fourth, we could encourage open conversations about mental health. There is a lot of stigma around asking for help or admitting that parenting is tough. The advisory urges communities, workplaces, and health systems to normalize conversations about mental health. When people feel safe to talk about their struggles, it opens the door for getting support. That's something we should all be working towards. Lastly, there's a call for investing in prevention programs that can help parents build resilience before problems get too big. Parenting classes, peer support groups, and programs that teach coping strategies are all examples of ways to help parents stay mentally healthy. And I Am Well MD serves as one of those programs that can create a safe space for you and your family to grow. In closing, the General Surgeon's advisory makes it clear that supporting mental health of parents isn't just nice to do, it's necessary. When parents are mentally healthy, they're able to care for their kids better, and this strengthens families and communities. It helps us to raise a new generation of resilient adults. This is a reminder that we all have a role to play in supporting parents, whether it's through policy, community efforts, or simply just being there for the parents that are in our lives. If you're a kid listening to this with your parent, give them a big old hug and kiss. I'm telling you, it means more to them than you can ever know. It truly does take a village to raise a child and to support that child's parents. This is how we can move towards creating what my husband and I call the well nest, a family unit that is healthy, resilient, and thriving. And with that, I hope you guys have an amazing day.
Hey, if you like what you're hearing, give this podcast a 5-star rating and share it with your friends and family. If you want to learn more about my mom and what she does, visit her at iamwellmd.com and subscribe to her email list. If you leave her a comment, you might just get a shout out in her next podcast episode. If you'd like coaching or support, she has programs available for you and your whole family. My mom is a great pediatrician and a great person, and I hope you like her podcast episodes. Have a great day. Goodbye.